And
Okay.
before we even did this whole thing, I don't know if you can see this. I did a whole freaking notepad right here, just
Yeah,
trying to
man, that's good.
just trying to make sure that I ask some of the right questions here.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't know if you're recording this or on your side, but just for my audience,
No, I can't record on this laptop.
oh, okay,
I don't have a thing.
okay, so before we get started here, I already tagged your channel to most of my videos that I've read articles for you, and if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself if you want to.
Yeah, I'm a philosophical zombie hunter. I don't know what I do anymore. I used to do more YouTube, but now I do a lot of Substacks. Nowadays I do a lot of kind of like research and trying to get concepts around the area of economics, both capitalism and socialism, and change it into a sort of digestible and palatable way for people to understand these topics. That's it.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah, so I did read your article about how Karl Marx promoted violence to basically end the capitalism, destroy capitalism, and there's a whole bunch of things that I want to talk about that because for years now, from what a lot of socialists said is that Karl Marx was the embodiment of a a trying to establish a peaceful environment. He was not really a warmonger type guy. He was not really a violent type of guy. He wanted to establish things through a peaceful way. But from what I read, your your page and actually looking at some of the things is that Marxist theory was basically to use violence to overthrow capitalism. So I want to get more insight about what more did he actually try to do with you know said violence, because once again I was depicted that he was this peaceful beacon for state socialism.
Right. So the so the problem that socialists have to contend with is that if you take someone's stuff, they're not going to give it willingly. They're gonna defend it. Now, a lot of socialists kind of, if you present them with this issue where how do you take someone's stuff without using violence, they kind of blank out. They don't know what to do. They kind of expect that if there's a democratic vote and the majority win, then people just hand over their property to other people without a fight. And obviously, that's not going to happen. It hasn't happened historically, and it doesn't even happen logically. I mean, historically, when Lenin started taking over parts of Russia, the kulaks, which were basically peasants that after the Tsar kind of let them have land, started doing a bit well for themselves. And when Lenin came and said, "I want you to collectivize your farm," they basically burnt their wheat instead of rather than giving it to him. So, if someone wants to take over my business and I'm going to protect it. If I can't protect it, I'll set it on fire and go away. So there's no real way for socialists to claim that taking taking property that people believe is theirs will happen in a non-violent way. It was completely understood from Marx and Engels that it had to be done in a violent way.
Yeah,
Now,
but their depiction is, oh well, things can get taken away through a let's just say non-violent kind of way, even though we both know that that's not possible, especially when it pertains to property rights or people's livelihoods being basically being taken away because of some philosophies that they depict from state socialism or just socialism in general to communism, Marxism, and then again, the whole well, they really try to depict that this whole Marxism thing is not well, some do. They try to depict that Marxism is not really socialism. Is a different type of philosophy. But the more you actually read into Marxism, it it literally ties into socialism. And once again, they try to do this whole peaceful type of bit, like we don't want violence. But then when you actually look at history, there is like a tremendous acts of violence, especially when it pertains to a certain person that they always want to disavow. I'm pretty sure you already know who I'm talking about. And once again, like they do this whole ordeal. Like if capitalism would just share things equally, then there would be no need for Marxism or socialism. That type of bit. But yeah, but you said Marxism did burn down some farmers' wheat if they didn't do what he wanted. Is that what you said?
So the kulaks, when Lenin was starting to come into power, rather than collectivize their farms, and bear in mind these are peasants that got a bit of land and did well for themselves, but like 5 minutes ago they were dirt poor.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of giving their food to war communism, they burnt it down because they were not going to get any money for it or something along those lines. And I think the problem is, first of all, that you need to appreciate that socialists aren't super honest. They're very ideological, and they know where the weak spots are, and they'll try to like circumvent them in a sort of Morton Bailey kind of way. They know that. Sorry, and one other thing I need to add: this whole thing that the USSR is not real socialism and it was authoritarian and violent only happened in 1957 and 1958 when the government of when Stalin died, and then someone I forget the name went into the Russian Congress and said, I don't know if Congress, but if he was the leader of Russia at the time, and he denounced Stalin and said that Stalin was an authoritarian. This isn't real socialism. And at the time, because of what happened during Stalin's period, academics around the world started giving up on socialism. But some people wanted to and moved to like the new left and like more like hippie kind of left. So they broke off from the idea of Marxism, socialism. And some people who wanted to retain socialism just said this isn't true socialism. It was never supposed to happen this way. But as far as I can see, and I'm gonna state this for the record, that as far as I can see, the USSR and Mao's China was perfect socialism, but to the letter. Like it followed everything that Marxism tried to do, Marxism prescribed, and then it ran into some things in reality and handled it in a very Marxist-like way. I can't see any justification for saying that the USSR or Mao's China, basically Marxist-Leninism, is not real socialism.
What does that even mean? Like it wasn't real socialism, because when it comes to socialism, socialism is the definition. Let me see. Okay, let me see if I can get this right. Is to protest. No, that's not it. It's an economic system in which property and the means of production are owned in common, typically controlled by the state or government. Socialism is based on the idea that common or public ownership of resources and means of production leads to a more equal society. So what does it really mean that it wasn't real socialism? Because I'm hearing that same bit from, when we talk about the funny mustache guy, like when they say, well, here's socialism. It wasn't real socialism. It was actually capitalism. Like, what do they mean entirely when it pertains to real socialism in its quotations?
They'll say capitalism, and they'll say, and this is all.
Hey, your audio's kind of cutting off right there. Nah. working just fine like a second ago.
And is it okay?
Little bit more.
I'm not doing anything special. Hold on.
Okay, right there. There it is. There it is.
Okay. Yeah, so they're basically saying that the USSR is state capitalism. And again, this is all around the 1957-1958 time where they denounced Stalin's USSR. Basically, what they're saying is that the state is not representing the people. Therefore, the state is a private actor, like a private business person or whatnot, that controls all the means of production, and therefore it's state capitalism. With the premise again that the state is not a public entity; it's a private entity.
But it's owned basically by the state, and the state is supposed to be this public infrastructure for for the classes and all that stuff. So I don't see how people could say that's private. Okay, so just for context, what would be your
let me add a few things. So just because it's not that what I've said is true. It's just it's a cope in a sense. But let me explain what it is they're saying. So. Basically, it is true that Marx prescribed that that you have the dictatorship of the proletariat, and then the state owns all the means of production. This is legit Marxism. I don't think there's any dispute over that. The idea was that the state is controlled by the working class, by the proletariat. Now, I'm claiming that Marxist-Leninism did do that. But they're claiming that it did not, that the state became authoritarian and was detached from the control of the people, and because it acted in its own self-interest in a private manner, that's why it's no longer real socialism. Okay. That's the crux of the argument.
Okay, so what is like the actual true definition of socialism? Because I'm seeing like 3 to 4 different definitions of socialism. If you don't mind
The definition of socialism is whatever wins the argument at the time.
So when it comes to but what was the term that Marxists try to Karl Marx and Lenin try to use in order to try to push their philosophy of socialism?
To some degree, socialism, you could say the dictionary definition is the workers owning the means of production, typically through the state. That would be like the way Marx intended it. You do that by abolishing private property rights, right. But not only abolishing them. It's not the case that the state says I'm no longer going to protect private property rights and the workers just occupy factories. It's that the state actively goes in and kicks out the capitalist and make sure the working class is the only class it represents in that country. I would define socialism as a economic populist ideology that is designed to incite resentment, theft, and violence, with the aim of giving its leaders economic and political control over the country.
Right. Because I have been seeing some depictions of what some people would say their socialism is, and like you said before, and what I've also said some time ago, like there was never one way to socialism. Like there was socialism, there was state socialism, there was a capitalist socialism, which is just another way for socialism. It's also Marxist socialism, Lenin socialism, German market socialism, which a lot of people try to disavow as capitalism. There's also like plenty other ideals where people have like their own depiction of socialism, and it's like you said before, if things like Mao's China or Nazi Germany or the USSR, or even when people said like some things, like they would say like what Joseph Stalin did was socialism, but when Adolf Hitler did the same thing in his regions, it wasn't socialism. Like yeah, I got a huge freaking notepad here. It's they did whatever means necessary to try to They use all acts of violence to try to push their philosophy out for for the greater goods. What they've been saying for a long time now, and my question is, if which I'm pretty sure I probably already said this. Okay, so if they could say like all those other things, like those acts of violence, what was not real socialism, then and they don't even know what they own depiction of socialism is, then how can you because we already got a whole bunch of evidence that it was socialism, it just wasn't they act socialism. How can they continuously say that it wasn't an real act of socialism besides being disingenuous?
I mean, because it's a very big shock to the system for them. I mean, you have basically a morality that says we should share. Profit hoarding is bad. We need to have a more like equitable society. And then you implement a system based on that morality, and it turns out to be very, very bad. And they're like, this doesn't make any sense. This can't be the reason. So it's a sort of cognitive dissonance as to what happened. But if, for example, you say, look, you're saying it wasn't real. You're saying Stalin's Russia wasn't real socialism, and you're saying that at some point in time, Stalin became authoritarian and didn't represent the people democratically. Now, first of all, Marx never prescribed democracy to the dictatorship of the proletariat. I mean, you can make the case that he didn't mean an actual dictatorship, but there was never the promotion of democracy. There was the overtaking of democracy with the dictatorship of the proletariat, but it wasn't the case that democracy was prescribed. So if someone is saying that Marxist-Leninism isn't real socialism because of this element, that the people didn't control the state, then you need to ask them, well, what actually is, or how would you define it as democratic enough to be controlled by the people? Now here, some people will say, I want direct democracy, like in ancient Greece, where every single decision has to be asked by every single person in the country. And I mean, it was cool for 300 people, maybe 20,000 people if you needed to pass a rule every once in a while, but you can't do that in a country with millions of people.
Right.
So obviously at some point you need representative democracy just because of the scale. And if you have representative democracy, then you did have that in the USSR. Now, if they're to say there wasn't political pluralism, meaning there was just one political party at the time. Now, why was that the case? Because Marxist-Leninists argued that you only need one political party to represent one class, so the worker class. If you have a second political party that will represent the capitalists, that you're basically sabotaging, you're allowing them to sabotage all the revolution and the hard work they did to get to that point, because the bourgeoisie political class will keep saying to the people, wasn't it better when the capitalists were around? Look how badly everything is going. And at some point, if you rely on democracy, they will persuade the people even during the 5-year plan. Like in the first or second year, they would have persuaded the people to vote capitalism and undo socialism. So the Marxist-Leninists argued that this is not good, and we can't go to socialism through this manner, or communism through this manner. So that's why there was only one political party. Now you did have democratic representatives, elected representatives, and you could vote or unvote them to not be there. There was only one political party, but there wasn't a justification for that. And there was an element I'm not sure if this was Marx or Engels, but they said you have to have a constitution. The USSR had a constitution. They had two. They had one during Lenin's time and one during Stalin's time. Even North Korea has a constitution.
So who was Karl Marx in general? What was he like? This person who actually cared about democracy and the working class, or was he just somebody who was mad at other people who had more money than him?
I think his position was more economic, to say it in a more uh, polite way, I suppose. His position was definitely more around the economics than the political side. I don't think necessarily he thought it through or he thought it was important. Or actually, I'm not entirely sure if he did or didn't, but he didn't write a lot about it. He was more concerned about the workers owning the means of production, and for him, that was the most important part.
Okay. Um, and you said Karl Marx did not like the whole capitalist thing, so he did not really promote democracy because he didn't want capitalism to take any means of power. So, so
So
this, so,
I would say this. I would say that he saw capitalists controlling the government. So to him, capitalist and the state were the same thing because the capitalists had money, they would influence the government to pass laws, and it's to him it was one in the same. And bearing in mind that the government also protected private property rights, so to him the state plus capitalists are in tandem. But he believed that I don't know if he outright didn't believe in democracy, but he didn't believe in this. He didn't like the structure that was then, and he wanted it overturned in the manner of a violent revolution.
so okay. So but he did try to use the state to like push his Marxist theory. He did try to do that, right?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, he
and
believed that. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so to a certain degree, he did believe in using the state because if he didn't, because a lot of socialists, some crony people out here, they do want to use the state as a means to like pushing their ideologies or their philosophy. So I
Hmm.
wouldn't exactly say that he was entirely against the state. He was just against some certain people who want to use the state, but he himself still wanted to use the state in order to push his Marxist socialistic ideology. I would so
Yeah, he had to use the state. I mean, look, let's take an ANCAP scenario. Yeah, let's
yeah.
say, and let's go towards the socialists and say that look, we agree with you that Marx said he only wants the state to stop protecting private property rights and stand back, and then the workers will just take the means of production from the owners. They'll just squat in the factory, they'll take it violently. It doesn't matter, they'll do it themselves. No need for the state. Now, from an ANCAP point of view, the owners of factory will just hire armed guards to protect their property.
Right.
So if the state, for example, isn't providing the service of property rights protection, then you could have like a market for property rights protection through the market. You'd have like armed guards, you'd have a variety of different rights protection agencies, the whole ANCAP thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that could have, so if they're saying this is the way that Marx intended, then we could disprove that just by saying, a guard with, a gun that can fire 20 bullets is as, better than 20 people with pitchforks.
Okay. Yeah, I would like because I'm not really a complete full ANCAP, but I do say like there should be a like abolish some said companies like uh the Federal Reserve, the federal government, because those are companies, and those said companies have pushed a lot of people into more poverty. But you have some socialists or socialist like people that would say like no, it's all because of active capitalism. And on the other side, it's capitalism that actually gave a lot of people certain jobs and all that stuff. But they would still push this theory that with Karl Marx's theory that capitalism has never helped out anybody. But then you actually look at a lot of these infrastructures and a lot of these jobs. Like let's just say a small business. They would they say like those businesses would are not acceptable in a socialist environment, or would you say like they would say oh get rid of big businesses, let the small businesses stay, but the small businesses have to pay a fine in order to stay in this said society? Would you like say something like they want to promote something like that?
So technically, they'll say whatever persuades you. So if you're persuaded and they'll pick up on your tone that you like small businesses, and probably, they're not gonna outright tell you I don't want mom and pop shops. But what is more accurate is if it's like a Marxist-Leninist, like pure socialist, then the concept of private property has to be abolished. If it's a market socialist, then they may say, yeah, like up to five employees, sorry, is fine, but then it has to be like a co-op or something. So I think that's where it splits down, and certainly like corporations have to be owned by the workers and stuff like that.
Owned by the okay, if they owned by the workers and the workers work for a said state, then that would mean that they do work for the state, and that's one thing that they don't really get, because they want a huge community of workers that governs themselves, and so they do eventually become the state. I don't. Hopefully, I'm not going into another direction here, but yeah,
Let me ask you a question. Let me present the scenario, yeah?
yeah,
Let's take Mao's China, okay?
right,
Let's take and the state collectivized or took over all the agricultural land, and once upon a time, peasants who had their own plot of land no longer have a plot of land and belongs to the state, and they have to like collectivize the farming and do basically what the state tells them to do on the farm, yeah? So here's the question. Once upon a time, these peasants had a plot of land and they had a say on what they can do in that plot of land. Now they're essentially landless peasants
mm-hmm.
that are servants of the state because they have to do what the state says. Now, socialists would say, yes, the state controls all the agricultural land, but the people control the state. So, at which point, and you can ask that of a socialist, does it magically become from a slave to the state to no longer a slave of the state because they control it and still follow the instructions of the state?
Well, I wouldn't exactly say that the people do own the state, because it's the people in charge who got voted in that own the state. So some people could say like, well, voting people in that we do control the state, but then those said people that do get voted in, if they end up creating some kind of policies that fundamentally hurts the people and puts them at a much more disadvantage, then technically they don't really own them. They're just helping create the downfall out of this lie of democracy. Because when you hear a lot of people say democracy, it's like democracy is supposed to be helping our freedom. It's supposed to ensure like we have the right to say a say so by who's in charge, and then those people who do get in charge by a vote, they end up screwing over the people that got them in office. So it's kind of a falsehood that I would say should be abolished to a certain extent, because if people really did want true freedom or true liberty, or they did want people to enact like their own free will, then they would not be voting for people like blindly. Because a lot of people, especially here in the United States, people are economically literate. They're not economically sound. They only vote one way or a certain way because from the two-party system, which Democrats and Republicans, they would literally say like these two systems, if one party is in, then we all fail. But if this party is in, then we all succeed. But people who are libertarian or even third party, they know like the means of how this two-party system is actually a very corrupt system, like the federal government and the Federal Reserve and just the state in general. So I would not entirely disagree with the whole ANCAP position. Where they want to abolish the state and people should have the right to like own whatever business they please. It's just a lot of people say democracy. We need democracy because voting means that we are actually in charge. But then when you actually vote, you don't vote for another 2 to 4 years, and then when things hit the fan, now all of a sudden people are either blind to it or they're just confused. Like, hey, we got you in this position to help us out, but then you end up pushing a whole bunch of other things like Ron DeSantis. Like, do you know about Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida?
I know of him, but I don't follow American news that much.
Okay, so here's what, and let me ask you if this is if you would consider this socialism or not. So he passed a bill recently that where he stated like he was going to take away all means of production, or he was not going to have Disney, like Disney Studios or Walt Disney, have like the free will to do whatever they please with their amusement parks or anything that they own. And a lot of people would consider Disney a privately owned business, right? So he literally said, okay, so you guys think you're just gonna keep on doing what y'all please? I'm gonna come and make this bill and ensure that you guys have to answer to us first in order to do like whatever you guys like. And would you consider that an act of like things going too far, or would you consider that like the state doesn't want certain businesses to get one over on them?
I think that technically it does sound like a step too far. I'm not sure with the details. But basically, like I think the arrangement was that Disney had like an area for themselves, and they paid for everything in that area, but they also had like a high degree of control in that area,
Mm-hmm.
and low taxes potentially. And now that's been taken away because Ron DeSantis didn't like the whole
Let's just say what
critical race theory,
yeah.
that they were doing. Um, to some degree, I mean the I don't
Like what
the
like
fact that Disney had the fact.
like
Can
would you
you
say
hear?
that yeah, like would you say like that's an act of socialism, or was that just like state control like in their means?
Uh, it's definitely state control. I don't know if it's necessarily socialism. It could be like there's a way you could say that socialism. I think in terms of economics, there's socialism, fascism, and let's say capitalism or liberalism.
Mm-hmm.
So socialism would be that the government controls Disney and tells it and buys it, and like it owns the property and tells the workers what to do. You could say it's economic fascism in the sense that the owners still own Disney, but the government tells them how to run it, when to run it, what to do, how often to do it, what music to play in the offices, who to hire, who not to hire. That's more like economic fascism, where they own the means of production, but they don't. But the government controls the means of production. So it's like a separation between owns and controls. And obviously, capitalism is that the private sector owns and controls the means of production. So necessarily, any regulation or any like if you own a house and they tell you you can't hang your laundry outside because it doesn't make the area look pretty, that's a sort of economic fascism. Because you own the house, but you can't do what you want with it.
Well, yeah, because when I first heard that story, is hold on, let me see if I can get this right, so I can go ahead and give you like the full context. Because for what a lot of people said, for what a lot of news outlets said, he hopefully this is recent. Yeah, February 27th. Yeah, this is recent. So DeSantis repeals 1.2 billion tax hike he imposed during last year's Disney hike. Well, I'm sorry, hold up, that's not it. That's not it right there. So for what some people said, it's like DeSantis now controls DeSantis World Special District. Here's what that means. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed legislation Monday that overhauls the special district that oversees Walt Disney World by, why the heck did this freaking thing pop up? Jesus Christ, I hate these freaking ads. By giving the district that oversees Walt Disney World, by giving the governor power to appoint its board, saying he was getting rid of Disney's corporate kingdom following a long-running battle between DeSantis and Disney after the media giant criticized Florida parental rights in education law known as the Don't Say Gay bill, which is not the Don't Say Gay bill. Walt Disney is.
Oh, that's what happened. They criticized it, so he took it away from them.
Well, that's one. That was one means of it. Like you had some people in the Disney board that did say like what Ron DeSantis did here was act of Satanism. It was an act of the devil, bigotry. But if you actually read the bill, nothing in that bill said anything about gay. So what Ron DeSantis did is, and I gotta actually read this bill to actually make sure. It's like he took away some special appointees and said like, yo, this district that you guys are in is now being controlled by us. So that's basically what he did. And Disney has not yet responded to DeSantis signing the bill into law, but the company has previously said it will not fight the government's takeover of Reedy Creek. For more than 50 years, the Reedy Creek Improvement District has operated at the highest standards, and we appreciate all that the district has done to help our destination grow and become one of the largest economic contributors and employers in the state. So what DeSantis actually did here is that he basically took a district that Walt Disney was using and said, we're taking that back now. That's basically what happened. Just for full context. And you said that was
Yeah.
that was economic fascism, right?
Um, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if that's the best definition. Economic fascism is more like to control your company while you own it, so you can't do as many things as you want. But they had an agreement, apparently, from what you're saying, that it was like a special economic zone, and they could do what they want within limits in that area. But it was theirs plus their responsibility to take care of it, and as a result, they didn't pay a lot of taxes and had a certain degree of freedom. That to me strikes like a more like the direction I'd like to see the country go. I don't know if it's necessarily a per corporation, but like more freedom, more responsibility, less taxes. That would be like ideal. So I don't like what I'm hearing now that's happening. I can appreciate there's like the whole culture war thing in America. I'm not particularly affected by it, so I don't have like a huge opinion. And to be honest,
Oh,
like
that's bad.
maybe I'm slightly affected because even the Disney stuff I see has like a tint of CRT to it, I suppose. And I do admit that my kids aren't watching as many Disney movies as they used to, certainly not the newer ones.
Oh yeah, it's bad.
But
It's
yeah.
it's bad, man. I gotta say, like, a lot of things nowadays, especially when it pertains to media or just TV in general. This is why a lot of people are basically moving away from certain companies like Disney and HBO, Warner Brothers, DC. It's because of the whole culture war thing that basically a lot of people are now into because it's a means of entertainment or production. But now that a lot of people some governors out here are taking action against culture war because they don't like some of the things that they see. They taking matters into their own hand and basically just doing the whole, well, if you guys won't listen to us, then we just gonna put some policies in place that make sure you guys listen. If you guys don't like what we're doing, and if you're doing it anyway, we just might we're gonna end up finding you to a high extent, or you're gonna be put in your own place because what you're doing right here is illegal. That's basically what this whole situation is. And a lot of governors here in the United States are actually taking that into account. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, uh, it's can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I don't know. It's disappointing, I suppose. I guess I take like a more like passive approach where I tune out, and I do discuss these things online with people. I do like try to fight it, but I'm more fight it by not contributing to it my money.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. That's a problem. A lot of people will say, "Oh, well, they grew up with this company and they hoping that something good might happen." But then when things don't get better, like the whole Peter Pan and Winnie thing, that show is already dead on arrival. I'm not even going to even waste my time with that. I wasn't even going to waste my time with the Little Mermaid, but my mom said she wanted to go see it. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go take you to go see it. I'm gonna take my sisters and all that stuff. But so I'm basically just being thrown into it, even though I know some of these movies is going to be like complete and utter trash. Like they said, they want to be more progressive in the movies now, and that's one of the reasons why some of these movies are complete and utter trash nowadays, because they are being more progressive. They want to be more politically correct and all this other stuff. But then they don't actually see the actual fans saying like, "Yo, this is trash. We don't want this." They are so quick to call the fans that do love these movies bigots. They don't actually want to take some actual history from actual African culture and make those type of movies. They want to race off everything, just stuff like that. It's like this whole deal, but we end up just going into another different direction here. But
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about. I think there's a guy on YouTube which I watch called Critical Drinker,
yeah,
and he has a lot of really good philosophical takes about what you're talking about, and he has like a good like over because he writes books and like screenplays and stuff like that. So he has like a good overview of what they are trying to do and the cultural impacts that they're going for. But I think back to democracy.
yeah,
I and socialism, but democracy, more focused on democracy in general. I think that the way that socialism depicts or relies on democracy, sorry, is that the people have the state has much more control. There's no limitations on the state within its democratic, even if it's elected democratically, it doesn't have judicial limitations. The constitution that it writes, it's basically like a socialist sort of flavored constitution. Like you'll have your own job, you'll have the right to food. It doesn't actually promote individual rights that protect the individual from the state in any way, shape, or form. And I think socialism is like pure democracy without constraints, so unlimited democracy,
mm-hmm.
you could say. And like more like liberal democracy or Western democracy, there is a constitution that protects individuals from the state. There is a judiciary that protects individual from the state, and just the fact that you have bureaucracy, for example, is a way of limiting politicians, because politicians can't or they don't have the power to make sweeping changes. They have to go through the bureaucracy. So if you have bureaucracy, even though it's a negative thing in other cases, the fact that you have it means that politicians are more limited because of it. And throw in like the American style of democracy, where you have to get everyone to agree on everything, or everyone to agree on one thing, sorry, before it can pass as a law. It again is another form of restricting democracy.
Right.
So the more it's restricted, and the more that there is individual rights protection or the respect of individual rights, the better the results would be.
Right. And that's the main problem when it pertains to the whole democracy thing. Like everybody has to get on board and know to pass a certain bill. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of these bills are complete and utter freaking trash. Like a lot of bills that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is basically a female version of Bernie Sanders, the whole democratic socialism type thing, she has pushed a whole bunch of policies that fundamentally hurts her district in New York City. But then when she tried to say, "Oh, these said policies will help out across the United States," she is literally brain dead, or just yeah, she is illiterate. She would not see like these said policies that fundamentally hurt her district, where a lot of people have lost their jobs, and a lot of people are looking to move away from said district. She does not see that it's her fault for why a lot of things are going down. It's just the whole, oh well, we like what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, we like what she's saying. She's a big Bernie Sanders kind of guy. He promotes democratic socialism. He actually cares about the working class, and that I'm using that in quotations, that he actually cares, even though a lot of things he does is basically capitalistic means. Like the whole, he's out here doing a whole bunch of capitalistic things, and he's out here saying like he hates capitalism. It's like that whole ordeal right there. It kind of just shows like they don't actually believe in their whole philosophy. They don't actually believe in democracy because it's the whole, well, we need to do something for the entirety of the people who actually got us in office, but they don't actually see like how they policies actually hurts them, or if they do see it, they don't actually care because hey, we in power, we got y'all taxpayer money, ain't got nothing to do with us. We away from all y'all. We away from all this crime. We got our own private sectors. We got our own guns out here. Even though we say you guys should not own a gun. You guys should not own an AR-15. It's like that whole, like, yes, I would say democracy is basically a scam, and to a certain extent, should people have a vote about who should be a leader? Yes, as long as that leader is not crony as hell, or they don't have any ill intentions. That's where I would actually draw the line. But as far as I've seen from the past 6+ years, when I first voted, and yes, when I first voted, hey, I ended up voting for Bernie Sanders. Like, hey, I was politically ignorant at that time, but now that I actually read some things about capitalism and socialism, I'm like, okay, so now I know that the two-party system, when it comes to Democrats and Republicans, I don't know how it is in the United Kingdom, but for what I've seen and for what I've read about a whole bunch of things, being a libertarian and focus and reading more about libertarianism, it's like this whole, yeah, they use democracy as a means to screw us over and get richer off of taxpayer money. That's why I say, yo, let's just end this. Let's just have the free market do its thing. Let's even have a libertarian in charge, so we can actually get some things done. Abolish this organization that's basically federal owned. Get rid of these organizations because these organizations are hurting us to a high extent, and now we are in a bad situation. Before we end up voting for this certain individual to help us lead into a better utopia. It's like that. It's like that whole deal. That's how I basically see democracy. But I don't know how it is in the United Kingdom. How about democracy that you might be witnessing in the UK? If you have time to actually explain that, if you can, like how democracy.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great over here. Basically, we've got socialism light and social on the right, and socialism proper on the left. Although the left are trying to paint themselves as the new leader of the left, well, not so new, but basically the left up to 2019, 2020 were like hardcore socialism. There was a youth movement called Monumentum, Momentum, sorry, and they were like pushing socialism. And then after that, I mean, to varying degree, socialism here in the UK is more like Fabian socialism, because Fabian socialism is from the UK. But after they lost, they went to a more neoliberal, like Tony Blair kind of track, because they wanted to start winning again. So the guy now is more like neoliberal. He can get us economic growth, green growth, while paying the workers, while fixing the National Health Service and all that kind of stuff. But with a focus on economic growth, which I'm not against. I'm for economic growth. I don't think that they'll succeed with their plans, but even if they just have the aim of economic growth, that's a plus. Whereas the right are like compassionate conservatism, basically socialism in a suit. But socialism light in a suit. But I think the overarching theme, both in the UK and the US, is that people are tired of the promises of politicians.
Right.
They are not impressed. It's been like, I don't know, decades, where politicians promise things, they get into power, 2 to 4 years pass and nothing happens, or even worse, things happens. Or if like it is good, it's nothing because of what they did anyway. And they can only make the situation worse through a war or through economic policies that hurt the people in the middle to long term. And people are just tired. They're tired of the promises. They've given the government so much power to make changes, and they see nothing come out of it. And I think this is where we, like libertarians, can come in, minarchists, libertarians, ANCAPs can come in and say, look, this isn't working out. Maybe we shouldn't rely on the government to solve our problems, and we should look at other ways of addressing it. Now, I think there's an argument to be made. I believe that people on the left are deathly afraid of relinquishing power to the markets.
Oh
They
yeah,
would not have it
oh yeah, of
over
course.
their dead body. And people on the right, let's say more religious people on the right, they're less afraid of small government, but they're still like interested in controlling cultural aspects of the culture, sorry, then and that they do want control over. And so it's a bit of a tight spot. It doesn't seem like the right are a very good option for the libertarian necessarily. The left, if they were more neoliberal, like in the UK, potentially might be like a good option for the more like center libertarian kind of people.
Hmm.
Especially to some degree, the UK could be in a better position for like a libertarian position because it's so shit right now economically. Like the only way is up, really. Like you can't tax. It's the highest taxes we've had in 70 years. You can't ruin the economy more as it is currently. Like
Yeah,
the only way you can the only way you can fix it. So the reality has set in. The economic reality has set in, and the only way to fix the economic reality is to have some more economic liberties or economic freedoms. So to some degree, that could be a positive thing in the long term, but I don't know if it will be the long term. But I'm not too hopeful either way.
yeah, I heard. Yeah, I heard like the tax rate there was like what 60, 70%.
Well, if you add everything together, not like just there isn't one tax that's that, but if you add everything together, potentially 60.
60. Okay. And the guy Tony Blair, you said he's the one in charge of the UK right now.
No, 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 no. Tony Blair was in the 90s
Oh,
to up to
okay.
like 2000s. He was prime minister for 12 years. He followed Margaret Thatcher, who you may have heard. And Margaret Thatcher, basically, up till Margaret Thatcher, we had socialism pretty much proper. Like if you go back and watch Milton Friedman, he would say that in the 70s, he would say the UK is now doing socialism.
Okay.
And we basically the people basically had enough in 79, 78, where it was called the winter of discontent, where it was like a bunch of unions. We had high inflation, and the unions just shut down the country. Then Margaret Thatcher came in, and as a result of people, not that people liked Margaret Thatcher, they just hated the situation so much.
Right.
And then Margaret Thatcher came in, a very principled lady, and she kind of turned things around. But Tony Blair, who's on the left that followed her, he didn't change this neoliberal position. He continued with it. So both Margaret Thatcher, that were pro-markets, and on the conservative side, and Tony Blair, who was on the Labour side, both were pro-markets.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they had like their own slant on tweaks here and there, but they were both pro-markets. And 12, 3 terms in office, that's a very successful position to have. And I think right now, the guy who's Keir Starmer wants to do the same thing. They want to get into power because they haven't been in power basically, since 2010. So yeah, they want to go back, and I'm pretty sure they will get into power. Like the Conservatives are at an all-time low. Just so you can appreciate, when the left here were led by Corbyn, who's quite socialist, and there was an election. The Labour lost so many seats in Parliament that it took them back to 1935. Like
Right.
it was such a devastating loss that they had to replace him, and they're trying to replace him with like a Tony Blair-esque. Even though like people don't really like Tony Blair nowadays because he led the war in Iraq with Bush and everything, and people don't like that element. But in terms of like, he still won three terms, so they're trying to go back to that. And now is a good time because it's economically it's pretty bad.
And is that what does UK have universal health care, free college,
Yeah, we
and
got the NHS. Yeah, we got the NHS. we we used to have like higher education, but like since 2011 we haven't. It's not free. We have, K through your version of K through 12 is free.
Hmm.
What else would you like to know? We have a lot of welfare for poorer people. I think 51% of the UK, of the population, sorry, either don't pay taxes or get benefits from the government. So like 49% pay actual taxes for everything.
And, okay, and you said like okay, so you also said okay, so they got the universal healthcare. They basically
Yep.
got the free college for K to 12, and you saying
Not
like
not not free college. Not free college.
no, yeah, the
They
K,
have
yeah, the
free.
K to 12, the
Yeah.
K to 12. Yeah,
Yeah.
you said, and you saying like even with all this, it's like it's economically not that well in the UK.
Generally in Europe, it's not very well. We've basically, if you look at like real GDP, UK and generally Europe as a whole has stagnated. Like we have not increased the real GDP from about 2007 2008. It's like it's gone up and down, but it's flatlined basically from 2007 to 2017. It's just straight. Whereas the US has increased. It had ups and downs through the recessions, but it has increased. And it's we don't know what to do essentially. Like the UK in particular has low productivity, or productivity has not improved. For the longest time, like in the early 2000s, we had lots of immigration, and the economy, the growth was from that. But we have like a chronic issue of low productivity.
Right.
In On the continent, I mean, you can have one country doing better, one country doing worse, but overall, all the countries in the EU are stagnating, zero, like no growth.
Wait,
It's
wait,
not.
wait,
It's not.
wait a second. You
Go
telling
ahead.
me like y'all got all these socialist policies, and then you got some people in charge who are still trying to push it, even though there's no economic growth going on. And
So it's
try,
a problem. Uh, So this is a problem. They need economic growth to pay for the policies, and especially, for example, let's say the NHS, the health service.
mm-hmm.
Let's say you want to pay it more money. You can't pay it more money if you don't have economic growth. You can't increase its budget without economic growth. So, and for example, if we actually shrink the economy, are you actually going to take away money from the NHS? No, you can't do that because that's blasphemy, basically. The NHS here is a religion.
Right.
So they 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 need no. I'm not even exaggerating. I mean, slightly exagger, but it is like it will upset people if you say something bad about it.
Okay.
Except when you have kids and you're waiting in the A&E and no one's looking, no one's helping you for 4.5 hours, then it's slightly less funny. But
Yeesh.
um, so so basically, they need economic growth. It's not happening. You can't fund the services without economic growth, bearing in mind that these services cost more over time. There's more bureaucracy. It's less efficient. It's not like the markets. It's the opposite of the markets. These government-funded services cost more over time. They produce less value. They cost more. It's repeatable in every scenario. Take the US for example. Let's say the medical care, like the Medicare, Medicaid, and all the money that the U.S. government puts into the healthcare system, even though it is like a mixed system,
Right.
over time, over the last 20 years, it's gone up like 300% increased.
Oh yeah.
And then you have school, like higher education, which is paid for by the government. The government intervenes in it. It offers you a loan. It here as well offers you a loan. Then it tells the universities you need to have more administrative staff to do this, and that. So over time, it's gone up by like 200% more expensive over 20 years, even though like wages have not.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, anything that the government touches essentially gets more expensive over time and the value goes down, and everything that the market touches or is involved in, the prices go down over time and the quality improves. Think computers, smartphones. Now you could say, for example, that there's a difference between what the government offers and like the electronics and stuff like that, because what the government offers are labor-intensive industries. A lot of people out there, teachers, nurses, doctors, these are labor-intensive industries, whereas the markets can like automate and scale and use less people to achieve the same ends.
Well,
I,
I wouldn't exactly say the state provides that because there have been multiple people who do work for for private firms or private schools, private tutors that don't work for the state, and then they do eventually have their students work get a much more higher education or much more better grade than a lot of uh, state funded classes, if that's the right term for it. So I wouldn't exactly say that they do provide it, but it's just like they try to say it's the better alternative. Like, you know, when like during the whole COVID lockdowns, right? You seen a whole bunch of teachers on the beach then
yeah,
actually they're actually trying to teach their students, and then when you had a lot of parents saw that, like, okay, screw this, I'm taking my kids out of this state funded school, and I'm either gonna homeschool them or I'm gonna put them in private school. And then when that happened, you had the freaking people who are for state funded schools say, like, you guys are taking your children away from a social life, and it was like, we don't care. We more worried about their education than their social skills, because you guys are more worried about actually having fun than actually teaching our kids, or this whole gender pronouns BS you got going on. And you know, you have a lot of people who see this, who say this, parents who are concerned by it, and you know, you got the people who are representatives of the state. I can't get that goddamn word out. They are saying, uh, if you don't like what we're doing, then you are hereby, you know, bigots and all that stuff. It's like they try to do the whole reverse psychology thing in order to get people to like be more into them than actually be what's best for their children. That's basically what the whole ideal is. So this whole education thing, the whole state education thing, is like, it's not really a better thing as some people try to depict it. You have some people be like, oh, I went to a state funded school. It didn't seem like a problem. What? Okay, so what was the location of that state funded school? Because if it was in the inner city, then a lot of inner city schools are not really that well versed in actually teaching kids, you know, the fifth grade level. That's the whole deal.
yeah.
That
I mean, I agree completely. I think one of the better things that happened in COVID, and maybe this could be the best result of COVID, was that parents realized what their kids were studying as they were studying from home. And bear in mind, the parents haven't been engaged with what the kids are studying since the 90s.
right,
They just relied on the government doing what's right, and you know they're socializing with other children. That's good for them. So we just let the government handle education. And this is the first time in basically, I don't know, like 30 years that the parents like woke up and said, I don't really like what's going on, and I want to do something about it.
right,
And and to some degree, like to some degree, like there's this whole like CLT, gender identity, social emotional learning that's happening. That's like a story in and of itself. But I'll be happy to discuss at least why I understood it. Although I think Scott knows more. But in general, sorry, not in general, in slightly differently, the the grades that the public schools and the inner city schools that the kids get are so poor. Like they haven't. There was something like where a state, I don't know if it was Wisconsin or something like that, like zero kids passed acceptable reading and math levels.
and this was in
Like
Wisconsin.
I'm not sure. Like I saw something like in 53 schools, zero kids. In a state that had 53 schools, zero kids were satisfactory level. And basically, if you look at like the graphs, I can actually give you a graph. The state in general, like federally, there's more and more money going into schools, but the grades keep going down. So if you compare the grades for like SAT scores, the grades keep getting worse and worse. So obviously, this is an unsustainable model. And if you take healthcare, it's an unsustainable model. You're putting more and more money in. The UK is putting more and more money in. We're getting less and less service. And I'm not blaming the nurses or the teachers or the doctors. I'm blaming the system.
Right.
It's just bureaucracy, the system, the inefficiencies. the fact that the government is involved in all of these things, it has no incentive to become more efficient. It has no monetary incentive, and it's just going to get worse to the point where it pops and someone says this can no longer continue. We're at a stage now with NHS where we need to think of something else. Like we can't keep throwing money at it, especially if we're not growing economically anymore.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. The the main problem is you would have some people who are afraid of confrontation. Like you would have some parents out here that do believe that their kids should be put in a much more better school. The problem is they are afraid of the backlash because they're more worried about what people on social media think or what the people around them think they're actually doing what's best for their children. That's one of the main problems. Like you say you had a kid saying, I don't know if you homeschool your kids or you put them in a much more private school, but you do see like the problems when it pertains to like certain schools, and I definitely got to read about that 53 schools students didn't pass at a majority rate. I definitely got to look that up because that's something that I didn't even hear. I'm pretty sure a lot of people didn't even hear about that one. So that's something new to me. And the fact that that's even a thing is a major problem when it pertains to like the like state funded schools, and they're just constantly getting money thrown at them, but then they don't actually have like some actual teachers that actually want to learn, actually want to teach them. You got teachers that are more worried about pronouns and literally 1% of the population that actually teaching kids like the basic reading, writing, and math, and that it's like you said. Is this the graph right here?
Yeah, that's for the. I think it goes up to 2017. That's like the SATs versus SAT average scores versus spending.
More education spending leads to worse results. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's okay. In 1971, the spending was at least $65,000. Now it's 2007, 2016. That's $16,000. I'm pretty sure the number is much more higher than that. And the average SAT scores, whenever the spending went up, the SAT scores went down. No, I believe that wholeheartedly, for real. I really do, because with all the money that these schools are getting, because there are schools out there getting a tremendous amount of money, and this is from the College Board National Center for Education Statistics. Oh, so basically from the source in general, that's saying like, yo, we're basically failing y'all kids because of all this government spending.
Or failing the kids because of the government involvement.
Right.
In general. Plus, I would throw in that instead of teachers that want to actually like if you would have had a market, like the good teachers would float to the top. Yeah, they'll like they'll be more noticeable. Here you have activist teachers that want to like push an agenda.
Mm-hmm.
That's their main focus. So, and in general, like education is very very left leaning. So that's kind of what you get.
Yeah, that's the major problem with U.S. education. Then everybody sees this. Like no, seriously, there are a lot of people who see this, and then they blame the parents for not actually want to teach their kids. But then when the parents are like, okay, you're gonna trash talk us, we're gonna take your kids out of these schools. They were like, wait, hold on, that's illegal. You can't do that. It's like it's so like
we took our daughter out of a school because I don't want to get into it. It wasn't the education was bad; it was something else. But we took her out and moved her to a school because we didn't like some things, and we were serious about it, and we did move her. School we have now is a lot smaller and it's quite good.
Okay, well, that's good. Well, that's good. Then she's hopefully getting a better education. Yeah, yeah. That's
I mean, and we also like my wife spends time with her at night with the spelling and reading and stuff like that. So yeah, so far so good.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's good. We definitely need more parents like that out here to actually say like, okay, we gotta actually teach our kids like the right thing, because you have certain individuals that that would not actually want a better education. They just want that the free taxes, free government checks. You know, once again, taxation is not free. It's like that whole ordeal. And when it
Oh,
comes to economics,
if you have, I don't know if you have kids or you have listeners that have kids, but if you do, and you want to educate them on a more libertarian slant, there is a series of like children's books called from the Tuttle twins.
the who twins?
Uh, Tuttle twins. It's American.
Tattle twins.
And yeah, I would introduce my kids to that.
I definitely gotta see that the tattle twins. Okay, it's like, and are they how many people do you know have actually signed up to watch those guys?
Well, they sell children's books. I'm not sure. I mean, they have children's books and they have some animated stuff on YouTube. I mean, they're still going. I haven't heard that they're doing poorly or anything, so they seem to be doing okay.
Okay, well, that's good. I always hope for everybody's success. Well, not actually everybody, but some people that I would actually say are actually trying to do a good thing out here. Some people, I'm pretty sure like yourself, you trying to get more people into like the libertarian route, pushing out your articles and all that stuff, which I would say is pretty good because I actually learned a whole bunch of new things, especially when it pertains to socialism, Marxism, like I said with the whole the USSR was a socialist, and so let me go ahead and get back to this because this whole Karl Marx thing. I know we was having a good conversation right here, but I wanted to get back into this little talk about right here. So Marxists and Engels, they end up writing the manifesto of communism. So was they Marxist or was they communism, or are those two the same thing?
Essentially, communism is the end goal of Marxism. So, like, Marxism is like socialism, or basically Marx took over socialism, or at the time was the most popular thinker in socialism. He basically took over from the utopian socialists, and he wanted a more scientific approach. And I guess he was more charismatic, or his ideas were better and or more effective. And he took over he took over what, like, the definition of socialism at the time. Since then, it has splintered off, like people who are for Marx, people who are socialist but anti-Marx, or they want like no state at all, more like an anarchist direction, or a market direction, with like a mix of democracy and capitalism, but like more socialism. Actually, can I go to a point that you said before, and I wanted to address it because it will kind of help understand the mentality of socialists.
Okay.
So from Marx's point of view, like, the workers owning the means of production is the most important thing. Nothing else matters, essentially.
Right.
The reason why for it is because the forces of production is like a core theme to Marx. It moves throughout history, and he's analyzed history. He's analyzed history incorrectly, his historical materialism, but basically that's very important to them. I can add the background as to why, but it's a bit long, so I'll just stop at that point and continue. But for them, that's the most important thing, whether it be from the state or whether it be from the workers owning the means of production, or the state owning the means of production and the workers owning the state. Now, to them, any method that persuades you to agree to either the state owning more of the economy, providing more welfare, or you agreeing to force companies to be co-ops, that's all what they're trying to do. Now, they will not specify an end goal. Obviously, the end goal is 100%. But they'll try to get you to agree in small increments.
Yeah, I'm definitely not for the welfare system, because I've seen I've actually read and seen how the welfare system actually done to like especially when it pertains to my community and still affecting us to this day. How how I'm definitely not for the welfare system. People would say, food stamps, welfare checks. Well, if the government didn't get involved with a lot of these loan businesses or a lot of these systems, then there would be no need for anything like that. A lot of people would still be able to purchase good purchase good food, good homes, and all that stuff. You know, the whole free housing system, which they're trying to push now. When it pertains to like the Nina Turners, the AOC, the Bernie Sanders, the free rent, and all that stuff, we all like a lot of us do know who are not even like that versed in libertarianism. Because like I said, a lot of things I've said with my family members, they would, and even some people who in my side of the circle who are not who are not actually libertarians, they're never nowhere near close to it. I would say some things, and they would say, okay, I agree with this, with the settlement. This would be no free healthcare, no free housing, because who exactly is going to be paying for that? It's going to be it's going to be a lot of these taxes that's actually taking out a lot of people's checks that's going to be paying for it, because so it doesn't necessarily mean free, which is not free in general. It's still going to be paid just at the expense of higher taxation, inflation, recession, which we're all still paying for to this day because of
Yeah.
said bad economic policies and bad state state spending, federal spending. A lot of people don't see two and two mixed together. They want to see they always want to say like it's because of these organizations, these big organizations, because of all these things, but then they don't actually want to say like who exactly is like that one guy in Fabian's Discord who refused to debate you. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Cool Guy Games, I think.
Yeah, you like it's like I try to say to him like, well, it's the state that makes these policies, and he's like, well, who runs the states? So
Yeah. He will always say. So to them, like, if you say crony capitalism or stuff like that, they'll just, to them, it's like this is capitalism, or this is like full stage capitalism or something like that. To them, like if you say it's to them it's one in the same again, because they'll say that the capitalists control the state, therefore this is legit capitalism.
right.
Um, what I think I forgot what I wanted to say. So I think generally like oh, sorry, I remember now. So when you tell your family that we you guys will have to pay more taxes to make these social welfare things happen, typically socialists and left-leaning people say, no, you don't have to pay for it. The rich will pay for it. So it's like this, like some kind of, there's like a group of people over there that will just make them pay more money. It's nothing to do with you. You won't have to pay you won't have to pay a dollar more. It's some people over there. They'll pay for it. Don't worry, we'll make them pay for it, and then you'll have more stuff. And ultimately, it is always the fact that people will pay more taxes. The people over there, the rich, they're already paying for like 96% of everything, all the federal
Oh yeah.
transfers and all, and most of the government, they're already paying for the vast majority of it, or 90% or more.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
At some point, like this is something that happened in my area in Scotland, like the rich just leave at some point. They'll be like, this isn't for us. Even in Norway, the rich are leaving. So at some point you run out of rich people, and even if you like, you take all the rich people, like the 1%, you rinse them, you take all the wealth and sell it off at 100, all those stocks, all those bonds, and you sell it off at 100%, you won't be able to run the government for more than 6 months on this money. The government itself, it's like it's 6 trillion a year, I think 6.8, maybe, I'm not sure, 6 trillion. And if you take like the top 500 richest people in the world, even it's nowhere near that. Or so the idea is like to sell you on this thing where all you need to do is vote on other people's property or other people's money, and everything will be okay. And if you don't do that, then you're an immoral person. And that's basically the whole socialist selling line. Like, we just care about the workers, we just care about the poor, we hate the rich, we want to rinse the rich. Why are you a bad person for not agreeing with us? That's basically the whole the whole selling point.
Yeah, I would tell them to give me some receipts where I said I hate the poor or I hate the working class. I would say, well, show me the receipts that I said I hate these sort of individuals. And then when they don't say it, I'm like, okay, then shut up then, because you're just talking out your ass. But you will have some people like that, and I don't let them discourage me and all that stuff. It's basically the whole, well, it's the whole, oh, you don't know what socialism is. And I'll be like, well, you don't know what your own socialism is, and you the one promoting it. You say, you know, you want to get rid of privatization, but or you want the state in control, but you guys just said like socialism is a stateless society, but you guys want the state in the first place. So which one is it? Do you guys want the state, or do you want a stateless society? Because a stateless society sounds more like a ANCAP talking point. They don't even know their own ideals when it pertains to like socialism. So what do you?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter as long as they move you incrementally.
Oh no,
As long as you,
no, they won't. They won't. I'm too prideful for that.
well, sorry, I mean like in general, as long as they move the country incrementally towards the end goal. So like the more they, I don't know, like Europe is a better example here. Like we've got a national health service in the UK, but all countries in Europe basically have it to some degree. Like or they have like a semi-private public a healthcare system. A lot of people have free education for higher education. A lot of people have a lot of countries, sorry, have very good welfare and very high pension, like state pension. Some countries have private pension, some countries state pension, but basically overall, sorry, sorry again, I'm losing track here. The idea of socialism is just to move you more incrementally to that direction. So you have all this stuff from the state. Now let's encourage the state to have more co-ops. Now let's encourage the state to nationalize railway, to nationalize energy, to nationalize oil and gas and everything. So because now, for example, we have very, very, very high gas prices in Europe, like insanely high. Like my energy bills are like 5 times higher than they were 2 years ago. And I'm not in a bad financial situation. There are people here that just don't turn the heat, or elderly people that just don't turn the heating on, and it's not a warm country in any sense.
Right.
Throughout the winter, and it's all these green energy policies that reduced our energy mix to be more. It's also a long story, but to be more like dependent on natural gas, and then we had like this issue where everyone's doing the same green energy policies, and everyone needs natural gas at the same time, so the prices spiked.
So
Even though in the UK, for example, we have hundreds and hundreds of years of coal, we're not touching it, and we don't even frack. So we don't frack onshore.
right.
We basically ask America or Russia that do frack to sell us the gas they frack, the natural gas that they do frack.
So how come?
Or in the case of
So how come
yeah.
how come the UK government doesn't just do it themselves? Is it out of act of fear or something like that?
So you guys have been doing fracking since the 1950s. Here, it's the science says it's dangerous.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And you also said that the UK is more, they trying to be more nationalized, right?
No, I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying that socialists will say they'll just incrementally move you towards socialism. So we've got a lot of so basically they'll wait for some sort of big catastrophe and then they'll suggest to solve it through the government.
Right.
So for example, the NHS it's fully nationalized, right? But we need more and more money for it because it's less and less efficient over time. So how do we pay for it? We nationalize the oil company. They're making a ton of money right now. We nationalize it. We say it's ours. Okay, next. So we nationalize the railways because they're bad for one reason or another. Okay, next. And now we should nationalize. So you'll start with the things that you think should belong to everyone or something like that, or normies would think should belong to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's because it just sounds good, right? Like, no, everyone should have access to education. Everyone should have access to healthcare. Why is it that these big oil companies are are allowed to go to our country's resources and keep it for themselves. No, we nationalize all these things, and then you slowly, incrementally move it towards socialism. The problem is that reality kicks in, and it becomes less and less efficient, and the economy struggles. Now, let me make a distinction here. In Europe, there are countries which are much, much smaller. And I mean with a population of 1 million, but no more than 10, typically around 5,
Mm-hmm.
that manage to pull it off for slightly longer. Because essentially they're smaller countries and they have a certain makeup that can allow them to take a more socialist slant, but they are still heavily capitalist. Like in terms of economic freedom, they're very high. They're just very small. So them implementing like a particular social program isn't very complicated, whereas in the UK, it's like 67 million people, it is a lot more complicated and costs more money and needs more people and just doesn't scale as well as if you have a smaller country to do it. And then like basically socialists said, well, socialism is Norway. This is what I want. I want Norway. But they don't understand what Norway is. They don't understand the culture of Norway. They don't understand why Norway is the way it is. And the Norwegian people, for example, they don't even believe in socialism. They don't believe in class struggle.
Mm-hmm.
They don't believe there is a struggle between the classes. They have something called class collaboration as a cultural, philosophical position. So when a socialist says, I want Norway, Norway is just the beginning. They want socialism, but Norway seems to work. They don't know why. So they say, I want Norway, and I want Norway as a starting point to socialism.
And they want to push that onto, because you said your population over there is less than 5 million. They want to push that.
It's around 5.2, yeah.
Yeah, 5.2, and they want to push that to 331 billion people. They like
So let me go even a bit more extreme, yeah.
Right.
So there's this guy called Econoboy, and sometimes these socialist people feed him articles, and he like reviews it on his channel. And they gave him an article where, and I'm not joking here, a island village with 50,000 people. Yeah, 50,000 people. They did some sort of taxation very well. And because it's like in the context of a country, now we have to analyze it as if it's like the same as any size country. So just imagine 50,000 people. Like we can if it works here, we can replicate it on a much. No, you can't, because scaling is an issue. Scaling something is an issue.
Right.
And it just boggles. So basically, let's say for example, why do people think communism works? Yeah. If you take a commune with 400 people, like you could get by. Like a commune with 400 people, 1,000 people, you can possibly make it happen. Okay, like it can happen. But if you take on a country with like 100 million people, things start to get a little bit authoritarian. Do you see what I'm saying? So a lot of socialists take these very small countries as examples to what to use in much larger countries, and you simply cannot do that.
Yeah, they did the same thing with Denmark. Even though Denmark is they try to say like Denmark is a socialist country, everything is fine over there. But then once again, they don't actually look at the GDP. They don't actually look at the taxation rate. And then you had the prime minister over there. I forgot the guy's name. He said, "Well, we're not a socialist country. We're a capitalist one." But it seems more like it's a mixed economy in Denmark. They are for the free trade. They are for the free market. But the welfare policies are outrageous. And they say, oh, we should push that socialistic country and push it over here to the United States. This is what I've seen from the Hassans, the Hassan Nabis, the Vashis, the young Turks. From a whole bunch of other socialist talking points, like they want to take that small island and then push those policies over here. But like you said, they don't actually think about the scaling and about the how much more of a population we have than Denmark. So that's the main problem.
So yeah,
the main problem there.
So yeah, the thing with Denmark is Denmark or the Netherlands. Denmark was a capitalist country, I think 250 years before anyone else.
Hmm.
They had capitalism there first, really on the planet, I think. And or like the Dutch East India Company or something. I think they were the first. I hope I'm saying that right. They were the first ones. Now it is true that they have technically they have very high economic freedom. Like businesses can do a lot. There's not too much regulation. There is some taxes. There are some taxes to pay, and not insignificant taxes. But if you compare it to Spain, for example, if you take like everything Spain has to put together in terms of like taxes that businesses have to pay, Denmark, while it looks like one tax is higher, it's just the one tax, and overall, it's much easier to get business done. And a lot of the taxes, it's like regressive taxes. The people pay for their own welfare.
Hmm.
The people pay a high tax for their own welfare, but people with what this is for income. But people with wealth, they can become wealthier faster. But so yeah, in terms of like the business side, they leave it alone. It generates money, it generates jobs. Those jobs get taxed, and those taxes pay for welfare. And people are more or less happy with it because it's a very homogeneous society. It's basically, well, the Northern European Nordic countries are basically 97 point something percent white.
Mm.
Like it's all Nordic. It's all, I would even say, Protestant in terms of religion, like the Protestant work ethic or something like that. And basically, when you have a situation like that, everyone thinks they're in the same group. They don't mind the taxes because it goes to their neighbor, it helps their neighbor, so they don't care so much. But it's like these are cultural differences. And by the way, this kind of like the fact that they're all like homogeneous societies, this is something that right-leaning nationalist people rely on, like national Nazbols or third way people. They like to use the Nordics as examples of how to fix America in the same sense that socialists do. Do you understand what I mean?
I'm pretty sure that's well. Hopefully it doesn't happen because I already see a lot more people in Congress pushing for those policies. But like I said, they don't actually look at the population scaling about and how much that would affect us. And if it ends up being, it most likely will end up being a bad end game. But then they would say, hey, yeah, we try to do things a certain way, but it seems like some people just didn't want to agree to it. Like, just said things like that. It's honestly freaking annoying right here. But how we're at this point where they want to push like really bad policies and then push that to 331 billion people. I
Yeah,
honestly don't.
it's not scalable. It's just it just I just don't understand. I mean, I just work with businesses that try to scale a lot, and then I'm familiar with. But it's just how can you take a 50,000, 1 million, 5 million country? It's not even like the size of a state in the US, barely.
Hmm.
And like you're saying, I wanna and like even the states don't agree in the US. They don't agree on most things,
Well,
and you want to push
besides
this more.
California,
Yeah,
besides California it is their own socialist state. Because if you actually look at some statistics in California when it pertains to businesses, housing, taxation, you will see how
yeah,
they are actually leaning more to a much more socialist state. And same thing with New York City, where they just let where a small a itty bitty small closet apartment is $1,500, and
mm,
and their minimum wage up there is like I think $18, and yet people are still struggling up there where they do get paid like $18 an hour, sometimes even more, but they living in this small behind closet apartment that's probably the same size as this little section right here where I had this computer. And it's like policies like that they want to try to enact. New York, California it still has a water drought problem. Uh,
mm.
cars your gas there it's still expensive. They want to get rid of everything gas, make everything electric, even though the electric is also expensive over there in California. The infrastructure is bad. the crime is bad.
Mm.
The drug problem is bad. You got needles all over in the beach. Some people are scared to even go to the beach because they're afraid of getting a infection from used needles. You have a lot of people say, "Oh, what's going on in California? It's not a bad thing." A lot of people like, do you guys hear yourself right now about how bad it is? Like, you guys complain about Florida, even though Florida, a lot of those said people in California move away from California and move straight to Florida.
Yeah.
Like people don't actually see, like, actually look at some certain things about why some people move from said states here in the United States, where a lot of progressive politicians, they want to lean their states towards socialism, and then when they do, people leave it for a much more free capitalistic state like Florida. Even though Florida is just as expensive, it's more freedom. It's more freedom there, and less. Last time I checked, there's not really a tax rate over there in Florida, which is why you see.
There's they don't have taxes, but they don't have income, but they do have property taxes quite high,
Well, yeah,
I think. Or is that Texas maybe? I'm not sure. I do know that Tennessee, from what I understand, Tennessee has one of the best tax situations in the country, and they're doing well. I think that they don't have income, they have some sales, and they have some property,
yeah. Last time I
but it's like
checked,
very low.
Tennessee was leaning more libertarian. That's from what I've heard. They want to like get rid of all those taxes, and they want to make things a lot more better for the middle and low class people, because you already know the high class people is not really gonna be struggling, but the politicians in Tennessee know, like, taxation fundamentally hurts the middle and low class people. So if they can do that in a lot more bigger places, like, the same things with a lot of red states, Republican states, where they say they actually care about cutting taxes, but they actually don't, then excuse me, then it'll be a lot more better. You would have some people out here be like, hey, you guys see what we're doing here, and you see how a lot more people are happier here. They ain't gotta pay for all these federal reserves, or these federal taxes and other stuff. You see how they're more free. They got more. They refrigerators are more full. They got more money to save. They got more money to pay for things they want. Barely talking points like things like that. It's
I
like,
can give you
they
I
want.
can give you an example if you like. I can give you an example. So again, I'm not American, so whoever's listening to this, please check me. But basically, there were the Trump taxes in 2017. Now, when I say Trump taxes, it wasn't Trump specifically. It was a group of people that went to Trump and persuaded him to enact these taxes. So you're looking at a simplification, a reduction. It's both a reduction in, I don't exactly know the details, but both a reduction in the amount of taxes, the tax rate itself, but you had less opportunities for deduction. So it was a simplification in a way. Like the tax code was less complicated, but it was lower. So it applied more equally to everyone, and you couldn't, and there were less loopholes in it. From what I understood, from 2017 to 2021, or from 2016 to 2021, tax revenues, like the money you collect from taxes, grew by 50% or 40%. So basically more people kept their money. More people, the government collected more money because more people were working. Fewer people were collecting unemployment benefits, and getting and working and keeping their own money. But at the same time, the government doesn't have to pay for their benefits and is taxing them a little less. But still, it's a net positive. It's a net positive because they are working, and so the government isn't paying welfare for them. More people left so some people were like permanently unemployed, like they just left the workforce. So people came back into the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, it was very, very positive for the economy and for people. And I'm aware that in one of the speeches that Trump gave, he mentioned that a lot more people are joining the workforce, including women and minorities. And overall, very positive. It's not like we're heartless people saying suffer poor people. Say no, this is good for everyone. This is the right way. We want everyone to succeed. We want everyone to have a flourishing life. That's the point. That's the point of the system. That's the point of individual rights and freedom. That we have a state where it allows people to lead a flourishing life. That's what we want for everyone.
Right. Yeah. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. But when they hear no taxes, they were like, oh my god. So yeah, that's the thing. You want poor people. You want poor people to suffer. You want my grandparents, or you want my mother to not have a welfare, to not have any active income. Then it's like it's your grandmother. I'm pretty sure you're well off. If you want to help her, then you could. Why are you more dependent on me helping her than you yourself are helping her? When you're well off, you got a good job, probably making six figures. So you tell me you would not want to help your own grandmother? You would depend on me? Like, is that the argument like some people out here trying to make? And this, yeah, I did see this argument before, where some guy who got mad at, and this is an old video from young Ripper, Eric July, where some guy came at him for wanting to get rid of the whole welfare system, and then like he explained what the welfare system is. Your money's gone. Is being taken by the current taxpayers. Then he was like, okay, so I get it. Let my 90-year-old grandma perish. Then he was like, if you seem to be well off. Why would you make your 90-year-old grandma struggle? God was like, okay, I can help her out, but what about the other people? So basically a pivot or a goalpost move on their part. When they try to do this whole thing like, well, my 90-year-old grandma needs help, but I don't want to help her. So you can do that. Like, again, it's this whole backwards or the move of the, or pivoting away from a certain situation type of thing. They don't want to help out their own family members, but they want you to do it. And they act they act like they are on the side of good here.
Yeah, I'll give you two approaches. I have one new approach and one older approach, and you tell me you can use both or either. You tell me which one works. So let's say this is the new approach, experimental at this stage. So let's say they tell you, is it moral for us to take taxes and use those taxes to help the poor? Now, most normies would say yes. So you ask this: is it moral to tax people to help the poor, but then waste that money or like 80% of it, and only 20% reach the poor? Is that moral?
No.
And they'll have to say no, it's not moral to waste. And so that's what's happening currently. So yes, you have like a good intentions, but you know the way to hell was paved with good intentions. Right. Now, technically, in the more like holistic sense, I'll give you three. There's like a triangle, basically, the way I see it. The way that the free market solve problems that you've described with the grandmother. Now, I would say that the grandmother may have had opportunities throughout her life as she was working, or maybe as her husband was working, to save for her retirement. So it shouldn't be the case that it should be such a burden on her children. Although it can happen. I'm not saying it will succeed with everyone, but most people should have had the opportunity to save. They realize they will get old and they save towards that. I appreciate that a minority may not, but in general. So basically the triangle goes like this. If you have a free market, at the top of the triangles, you have a booming economy and everyone has a lot of well-paying jobs. That's basically the point. So you have that to lean on. Then on one side of the triangles, you have cheaper products. So you have, as we mentioned before, that markets make products cheaper over time and better value. This includes housing. This includes healthcare. These are the top things that people pay for right now. If you had if people could build as many houses as they want, then elderly people won't discover that the rent doubled because of inflation during these last 3 years,
right,
and now they're homeless. Even if they were receiving Social Security, like they can't compete with doubling of the rent.
Right.
And then on the last leg is basically charity, mutual aid, and stuff that with the understanding that the first two parts of the triangle cover the vast majority of people, meaning 97 to 99% of the people. Well, right now it is like, I don't know, a lot considerably higher. So that's the way I see the triangle. And again, we are trying for everyone to have a flourishing life. The grandparents don't want the grandchildren to pay for them, to take care of them.
Right.
They want the grandchildren to succeed, to have a flourishing life. So basically, we need to have like a sort of system that allows for that to happen. And in any which case, it's not exactly that you're trying to distribute money in a society. You're trying to distribute stuff that's being produced. The money itself, it's not the focus necessarily. It's you want people to use that money to buy stuff. But if you have an economy that produces considerably more stuff than an economy that does not, then the money, it will just increase the prices of things. You want a society that has abundance and can produce a lot of things and can reach everyone, even if it doesn't reach everyone equally, that it can reach everyone. Everyone has access to something. Even if you buy a cheaper car and not a more expensive car, you still have access to a car.
Right.
So that's kind of the point. That's basically the overview of it.
Yeah. I understand wholeheartedly. I understand that. But yeah, it's like I would definitely take that point into consideration when talking to some people about the whole welfare system. I would definitely do that. But we're heading 2 hours in. I ain't even think it was gonna be beat it long for real. But it's always good to have a good conversation about certain topics, especially when it pertains to like libertarianism and welfare system and socialism. It's always good to have talk like this.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you for having me on.
All right, man. I hope you have yourself a good day. Is there anything you want to disclose or you want to speak towards my audience?
Keep fighting the good fight, guys, for freedom. You can do it. We depend on you. You are the future.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, Philosophical Sami Hunter. I will have his link in the description box below. Check out his channel. He's more versed on libertarianism than I am, and he actually does a lot more research into it than I do. But check out his channel, guys. He's a pretty cool guy, and hopefully y'all enjoy the video, man. Philosophical Sami Hunter, man. I appreciate you coming on. Tell me more about Marxism and Karl Marx, his Marxist theory, and hopefully you have yourself a good night, man.
Thank you, man.